Let's get excited, folks. We now know the lineups for the second Democratic primary debate. Medicare for All, of course, is going to be a topic, and it turns out Joe Biden's chief of staff was once a healthcare lobbyist.
So Jennifer Holdsworth is a Democratic strategist, senior VP of Issues Management for MWWPR Public Affairs, and Mica Mosbacher is a member of the Trump 2020 Nation Advisory Board. Welcome to you both.
Happy
Good
Friday.
morning.
So we've got the lineup, Jennifer.
Drum roll, please.
How are we all feeling about this lineup
We
personally?
should mention, by the way, Jennifer works with Mayor Pete.
Yes, works with Mayor Pete. I mean, let's start there. How does Mayor Pete feel about the lineup?
This is really great. I mean, I haven't talked to him. We'll see him later tonight, but it's exciting. I mean, I'm kind of one of these nerds that is super excited that there's so many people in the race. I think there's a lot of perspectives. There's a lot of policy to talk about. Sometimes there's interesting moments, as we saw in the last debate. But I actually think this is great that it's jumbled up, right? It's not the same people on the same stage as last time, so I think we're going to see some different discussions going on.
Last time I was very upset because they had Elizabeth Warren kind of separated out from all the other top-tier candidates, which I didn't really think was fair. This time, at least there's some equity here. What I'm really looking at is obviously Mayor Pete, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. Those are the top three. I guess it'll really be interesting, Mica, to see the progressive vision that's battled out there.
Well, absolutely. And you know, obviously Kamala Harris had a breakout moment last time. She showed that, to say the least. I mean, she left Biden stumbling for words, especially regarding the busing issue. But I have to say something. I underestimated Mayor Pete. I really thought that Beto O'Rourke would outshine him, particularly with his staggering fundraising numbers in Texas. And it looks like he's probably going to be one of the first to drop out. I know we'll talk about that probably later. But you know what I think will be very interesting to see is Kamala Harris v. Elizabeth Warren. They both espouse similar policies to a degree. Neither one of them are moderates. And you know what would be interesting to see, it will probably never happen, is a two-female ticket. Warren and Harris.
Yeah, that would be amazing. They're on different nights this time around, but I think your insight is interesting because they draw from a very similar sort of base, those two candidates, Senator Warren and Harris. Jen, I wanted to ask you about Mayor Pete's strategy a little bit, which I know you guys will have to figure out now that you know what night it's on, but his performance was very well received the first night, and yet he didn't really see any rise in the polls from that. So do you think that you'll adjust strategy to try to get more of a bump out of this next debate?
No, I don't think he will, because there was a rise of the polls, specifically in Iowa. So he had shot up to 25% at one point. And I also think that you can see Mayor Pete's strategy and popularity reflected in his fundraising. So we raised close to $25 million this quarter, more than any other candidate. But the good thing about Mayor Pete is that, you know, when he gets told numbers like that, they're sort of insignificant to him, because his idea was that, great, I raised $25 million, Joe Biden raised $18 million, Elizabeth Warren raised $19 million, you know, Bernie Sanders raised $18 million. If you add all that up, I went to law school because I was told there'd be no math, so someone else is going to have to do the addition. But if you add all that up, it actually shows a great deal of enthusiasm for the entire Democratic crop as opposed to Donald Trump.
Is it a risk for him, though? I mean, he's been subject of several articles focusing on how he's really a darling of Wall Street. Darling of Silicon Valley. Is that a risk?
No, I don't think it's a risk, because majority of his donations are coming from the grassroots, and his average
dollar-wise,
the average donation is well below $40 or $30, and I'll have to check myself on that. But he is getting donations from every single state. Does he also get donations from New York, California? Absolutely, but so do the rest of the candidates.
Why do you think Wall Street likes him so much, though?
I don't think it's about Wall Street liking him. I think it's about the relationships that he's built over the years with various mayors. He has also recruited Silicon Valley and Wall Street to invest in South Bend, and they've seen the progress that he's made based on the infrastructure, the community investments that he's made in his hometown. And I think that anybody who's willing to give money to a campaign is endorsing not only the experience that that candidate has, but the ideas that they have for the country. So no, I don't think he's going to shift a strategy at all. I think you're going to see him continue to be the adult in the room, even when there's U.S. senators on the stage, even when there's former vice presidents on the stage, you know, even when there's members of the House on the stage. Pete has had a consistent message all the way through. But it's not drastically different from how the other candidates are talking about the issues or on the issues. What it is it's talking directly to the American people in a language that they understand.
So, Mica, we also have news now that Joe Biden's campaign chair, who's actually a healthcare industry lobbyist representing Novartis, Eli Lilly, and Sanofi. I mean, this just goes to show the dichotomy that we see in the race, right? Which isn't, I mean, normally this is kind of your run-of-the-mill business. You pick these super rich, connected people as your national co-chairs. They bundle money for you, and that's just how the game is played.
This is Ricchetti, who's been in the game with Biden for a long time.
But this could be a real problem.
And Podesta.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time.
I think he's the very definition of a swamp creature. And that's really what President Trump has pushed back against, obviously, drain the swamp. And he initially in January of 2017 passed an edict demanding that administration officials sign a pledge not to lobby on behalf of foreign governments to the U.S. government, and they are banned from lobbying after they leave the administration for 5 years. With Obama, they were banned after 2 years. So I think that this is going to be sort of a conflict of interest, and again, one of those situations where it may show that Biden's out of touch.
I mean,
well, I think that's what I really want to
think it's strains credulity to believe that this president is draining the swamp. But let's put that aside for a moment. I mean, this has come to the fore in particular this week because the Sanders campaign asked for all candidates to take a pledge that they're not going to take any money from basically big pharma, even employees, executives, lobbyists that work there. They are obviously focused on the difference in healthcare in particular between the Sanders campaign on the one hand and the Biden campaign on the other. Is this a bad look for Joe Biden?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I mean, saying that this president has drained the swamp because he actually has made it into Chernobyl instead. So, I think that's a little rich to say that this president has done anything to correct some of the bad things of Washington, D.C.
That's why we love him.
But in terms of Joe Biden, I think this is much ado about nothing. I think that this is a long-standing relationship that he's had with a trusted advisor. And I think that if you take anybody in Washington, D.C. and look at who they might have talked to, represented, worked for over the last 20 years, you're going to come up with something in their career that you disagree with. And in terms of Bernie Sanders, and I know that this is where, you and I part ways on some of this stuff, but, a lot of candidates are not independently wealthy and can't lend them their own campaigns personal money like Bernie Sanders did. I think that you have to raise money because you have to get your message out. You have to be on TV. You have to organize in the early states. You have to travel. You have to hire staff. This is what money in politics means. It's not, I'm taking your $2,000 and now I'm going to vote your way. Presidential candidates are not voting your way anyway. They want to put together an infrastructure and an organization that's going to be able to sustain this campaign all the way through the early states. So in terms of, and I try to explain this all the time.
But Jen, isn't it a problem when you're the party that says get money out of politics and then you're doing the same old stuff as the Republicans? I mean, the American people, I think that's an undersold part of why we have Trump, because he basically said, yeah, I know this game, and people thought because he was independently wealthy that he wouldn't be bought. Now, we all know except Mica, know that that's a con and that didn't, that's not reality. Right. But I think Democrats look like a bunch of hypocrites when they're going and doing these Wall Street fundraisers.
I understand. I take that argument.
And Bernie Sanders, a socialist flying first class, for example. So walk the talk. But I want to talk about money, for example, because it is the mother's milk of politics. And the RNC raised a whopping $108 million this last second quarter. Additionally, we have over $500 million on hand. And we look at burn rate in campaigns and the fact that Hillary Clinton did raise more money, but her campaign was really heavily populated with a lot of staff, whereas Trump campaign was lean and mean. And so we have to look at the fact that several Democrats have spent over 80% of their cash raised, for example.
Burn rate matters.
So that matters. And the Trump campaign, for example, is focused on data ops as well as several of the Democrats. And so that will be ultimately who is in the race will decide who drops out versus who has the staying power.
We're going to talk about that. We'll stay put, and we're going to talk a lot more when Rising continues.